Hello, you fucks. Welcome to John Solo's Beard Brigade. I'm John Solo. You are not. And welcome to the big show. It's Monday. Hi. All right. Show notes first here. And give me 1 second. Kiernan, I can still hear some music in the background there. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but you're going to have to mute that. No worries. Thank you so much. Sorry, guys. Talking to my guest in the background there. And I'm very excited about this today, too. I've never had Kiernan on the show before. I met her at GRL, and this is going to be exciting as hell. So, hello, Declan. I haven't heard you in a while. Jax, look at that. I got a Scott in the audience today. I miss you, Jax. You are one of the most talked about people in my house just because every time someone says no, all we hear is this, oh, no. But anyways, show notes for today. First off, we've got a busy video schedule this week. Of course, we're doing our video today. On tomorrow, we have Andrew Gray coming in for a duet reading. I forget the name of the book, so please don't ask me. But he's going to be in at 5 o'clock p.m. tomorrow. On Thursday, we have the Ramblin' Gremlin show. As always, whoop, whoop, whoop. It's going to be awesome. And, I think that's it for the videos. For the books, dude, I am working on a couple killer books this week. First off, I'm finishing up. I was supposed to have it done last weekend, but I'm not done yet. I'm finishing up on Casey Wells. She just started a new series, and it is fantastic. The series name is Salvation. The book is Wrangled. It's Salvation Book 1, Wrangled, and it is so good. I don't think Casey Wells has ever done any sort of ranchers, cowboys, western, whatever this is. In fact, I know she hasn't, but this is amazing. Casey Wells doing cowboys. There we go. I've also got Nora Phoenix. I'm a little behind with my Nora Phoenix schedule, and I'm sorry, guys. I'm getting everything caught up since our whole GRL and then COVID and all that crap. But I've got, I believe it's the Foster Brothers Book 3, Loathed Lagan, coming up this week. And I have a kind of a not-so-secret, but secret project through Podium. It's a dual narration with Iggy Toma. And I've never narrated a book with Iggy Toma before, which surprised me, because I know his name very well, but apparently I haven't, so I'm going to do that this weekend, I do believe. Next week, I have another very, very cool project coming up, and this is actually not a John Solo project. I'm going to do my first project ever under my own damn name, John Bricker. It's no secret, that's who I really am. John Solo's a pseudonym. But I get to do a nonfiction project for Tantor, and it's a book about the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Whoop whoop, which is way cool. I'm really super excited about it. So that's coming up next week. So anyways, that's what I got going on, and that's the video schedule. I think I've covered everything. I miss y'all. Through December, we're getting caught up. Then January, I should be back into Discord, I do believe. I'm thinking it's going to be somewhere around January 10th. Somewhere in that range. I'm going to be doing a Jeep trip at the beginning of January, then I should be back. So, our guest today. Now, I do extensive show prep, as you all know. When I have a guest on, I look them up on the interwebs, and I really all I do is sometimes I look at their webpage to get their picture. But I found this is maybe the first guest that I've ever had that actually has a Wikipedia page. I'm very excited to read this. Here we go. Kiernan Kelly was born in 1930 in the small town of Rathdowney. He and his family moved to Dublin in the 1940s, where Kelly became involved in petty crime. Slight in build, his large nose led to his being known by many people as Nosy Kelly. Kelly was arrested for petty theft in 1983. While in a police holding cell, he attacked another homeless man, William Boyd, and strangled him to death. I'm really looking forward to this. I've never had a murderer on the show before that I know of. Without any more from me, I give you Kiernan Kelly. Hello.
Hello.
I was looking for your picture, and I was like, dude, I know I've met Kiernan a couple times. That looks nothing like Kiernan Kelly, but all right, here we go.
Yeah, when I picked my pen name before I Googled it. And when I Googled it, I found out he's a serial killer in England. It was great.
That is so
Like
perfect.
my happiest moment was when I Googled because you Google yourself as one does. And I Googled myself and my name came up before his. That was like, okay, I've made it.
Well, I have a couple fun pseudonym stories for you. Okay, so the first one, My real name, John Bricker. John Bricker was actually a governor of Ohio, the state that I live in, back in like the 50s or 60s or something. No relation whatsoever, but I got that a lot as a child. So when I picked my pseudonym, John Solo, it made perfect sense, but it's because I'm a huge Star Wars fan. You can see the Mandalorian in the background, and it's so Falcon Sound Company, John Solo, like Han Solo. That's my roots. That's where I come from, right? What I wanted to be was Falcon Sound Studios. That was what I wanted to be. Turns out, Falcon Sound Studios produces gay porn videos. I did not know this. Um, and this was also long before I was a narrator. At the time, I was just an audio engineer, and I was running live sound for bands, and I had a recording studio in my house here. This is about 10 or 11 years ago when we first started. So I went to the extent I had actually had business cards made up and everything before I realized that this was, in fact, the case. So I'm handing out. One guy comes to me and tells me, and I do the Google search, and I'm like, son of a bitch, what the fuck? So turns out, years later, here's me recording gay porn. So it is what it is.
And that's a problem. Why?
Yeah, it's absolutely not. In fact, but it was actually kind of a surprise to me. Well, you tell me how did you get into writing gay romance?
I started in fan fiction, as many of us have. Somebody pointed out fan fiction in general to me. I had no idea what it was. And from there, they pointed out MM fan fiction, and I was instantly hooked.
Hmm.
And I read it for a while, and then I started writing it. I wrote in Lord of the Rings fan fiction in the fandom, and then I got such good feedback. I give a lot of credit to the people on fanfiction.net and adultfanfiction.net because the feedback that I got was so encouraging that that's what encouraged me to start writing original fiction. And when I had my first story done, I was Googling to see who was publishing it. And at that time, that we're talking back in the Stone Age, almost nobody was publishing it. And I found Torquay Press. And they used to run a contest every month for a short story. So I entered my story into the short story contest and I won. And they published it. And that gave me the encouragement to write my first book, which I did, which was Writing Heartbreak Road. And I submitted it to them and they bought that. And then I just never looked back.
Dude, that's phenomenal. Now I've heard of it's Torquay Press. Is that the name of the press?
Torquay Press. Yeah, they were the
Excellent.
first ones to start publishing MM fiction, gay
I've
romance.
I've definitely heard of them. Now they were I guess around just prior to when I got in, which was about 10 years ago, somewhere in that range.
Hmm.
I've talked to a lot of authors that got their start there. I guess in the scheme of things and in the modern scheme of things, I guess they were the Dream Spinner Press before Dream Spinner Press. They kind of held
Yes.
that. Yeah. Um, uh,
Hmm.
Out of curiosity, because I've never asked this question before, what ever happened to Torquay Press? Did they like go up in flames? What?
Well, yeah, it wasn't them. They sold the company, and when they sold the company, the new owners imploded it within a year. It was
Yeah.
gone,
Yeah.
which was very sad because they really worked so hard on their reputation all those years. But the owners, it was B.A. Tortuga and Julia Talbot. I know you know B.A. because she's been on your show.
Oh yeah.
They were my original publishers, and I have been friends with them for 20 years since they first published me.
Mhm.
Um, but they had sold the company. They wanted to concentrate on writing and not
Mhm.
publishing, so they sold the company, and the new owner just it imploded,
I
like so many other publishers have. It was very sad.
I guess that I kind of knew that, but I kind of forgot that as well.
Hmm.
I love BA to death. She's one of my favorite people in the world.
Yeah.
Once a year, she sends me. We were in Albuquerque a few years ago for the GRL, and my wife fell in
Hmm.
love with the. They have like the green and the red and the Christmas on all the tables out there.
Hmm.
It's like this sausage. My wife fell in love with the green kind,
Yep.
so every year BA sends me the green kind from.
Green chili.
Yeah, she sends that to us. It's just wonderful. But yeah, now okay, look, I'm going to go back because one of the people in the crowd as well mentioned this. Lord of the Rings fan fiction. What characters were you
Hmm.
shipping? What were you writing there?
Oh, I was totally into Legolas. and I paired him with everybody I could think of. I never wrote a canon ever. I exploded canon. Uh, Canon did not exist for me.
Hmm.
I once wrote a story about Legolas's detachable penis, which was great because the Galadriel got to pass it around while he was out in another room having breakfast. It was wonderful. Um, so even
So
back then, I was just weird.
Legolas and Gimli, did that ever happen in your world? I mean, there's a height difference.
I think, yeah, there's a height difference, but it's really good for blowjobs. Um,
Well, and Gimli can clean it up with his beard. That's freaking awesome.
there you go.
um, I've heard a lot of fan fiction. I've not run into somebody that wrote Lord of the Rings fan fiction yet, but that's right up my alley. I love fantasy to death. The move from fan fiction to the romance genre, there was a lot
Mhm.
going on there in the difference. How did you react to using a regular editor, a full time editor? Was that a hard transition for you?
It was not. Was very lucky in the beginning to have some editors who were very, very understanding that I had no idea what I was doing. Um, and I learned a lot from them over
Mm.
those beginning years. I always said I was never married to anything. And if an editor told me that they thought this needed to be changed, I changed it. I didn't argue. I didn't
Mm.
have my voice, and I didn't have, I was not married to anything that I wrote. I would very happily change things, and I did. And by doing that, I learned a lot. So now it's much easier for me because I know all the basics. So when I put stuff through editing, I'm still that way though. I still very much take into consideration what my editor is telling me, and if they think that it needs to be changed, then I change it. No big deal. Usually
Well,
makes the book much better read.
yeah, to say the least. Editing is maybe. Well, I forget who said it, that the first draft is going to be crap. The second draft is where it starts to come together. By the time you get to the third one and you're getting into your editor and all that fun stuff, that's where it actually becomes a story. I'm assuming that
Hmm.
you have a relationship with the regular editor that you use. Is that right?
Yes, yes.
Excellent. And is it somebody that we can talk about on here? Is it somebody that everybody knows?
I'm not sure if it's anybody that anybody knows. I'm trying to think of what his name is. Tell you the truth, I'm having a senior moment at the moment.
It's no worries.
I know.
We have a large part of our crowd is a lot of authors, and a lot of authors, if they're
Mhm.
not already using a regular editor, are looking for a regular editor. So if you have somebody good, please
Yeah,
by all means.
I will.
Um,
I will definitely get you the name because I totally am spacing at the
yeah,
moment.
it's no worries at all. The transition from then using a publisher to indie, did you go directly to indie after your first publisher, or did you go to Dream Spinner? Where did you go?
I was published with Torqueray, Dream Spinner, Cleus, MLR. Who else? Wild City, Lucid, ARE. Um,
Good Lord, girl.
think that wraps it up for the publishers. Almost all of which have imploded, mind you. I'm
Yeah.
not sure. It wasn't me. I take no responsibility.
They have one thing in common. How have you found the
And then
transition? Are you
after,
are you strictly indie now, or?
I am indie right now. I am hoping to be hybrid again because I enjoy working with publishers. I like having
Hmm.
that built-in audience
Hmm.
that goes with the publisher.
Yeah,
And
no
plus,
doubt.
it's just easier on the author because they do all the legwork. They
Hmm.
have the editing and the cover art and all that stuff. And when you're indie, all that's all on you. Plus the marketing. Well, the marketing's always on you. It doesn't really matter either way. Um, yeah, I'm mostly indie right now, but I'm looking to be hybrid again.
So with the indie stuff, that kind of cuts into like your Netflix time and stuff now too, doesn't it? I mean,
Oh, you have like no idea. Well, I'm sure you do. I'm sure you have every idea.
well, my world is different from an author, but I find an author fascinating. We have a lot of similarities as far as that goes, and I've been working indie for a long
Hmm.
time. I work pubs as well now myself, at different pubs, but I got my start with Dream Spinner, so I don't
Yep.
know, myself, I did like 50 or 60 Dream Spinner books, and my company produced a couple hundred, so that's where we got our start, and
Hmm.
that was a whole different matter. From my world with a publisher, there's almost kind of a distance, almost a disconnect is not the right word, but for instance, if I was to produce a book for you, some authors like to just give me a book and say, here you go, do your thing, I trust you. And in fact, that's what I prefer. I work that way a lot. But I also
Right.
work hand in hand with the author with promotions, for instance. And also, if the author
Mhm.
wants to have input, if the author wants to say, look, this guy needs to sound like Harrison Ford, and this guy well, I'll work and I'll see what I can do to make that happen. And some authors, especially in the beginning of my career, would fine tooth comb over the entire book, and they would get back to me and say, I don't like the way you did this line and that line. And I work to whoever's comfort level I'm working with. With the publisher, there's
Right.
none of that. None at all. They give you the book, they say, here you go, do your job. I never talk to the author. In fact, it's discouraged to talk to the author. And if I have to have a question, I reach out to the pub and they reach out to the author. That's normally the way that works. I turn in
Mhm.
my work. I get really no feedback as far as, good job, you did great, or none of that at all. It's just, it's it's kind of like wearing a condom, you know. It's very impersonal at times. Um, Now there's something to be said for it, and I have publisher clients and I love them. They're fantastic, but it's a whole different experience. And yeah, the other side of it too is I, of course, with an indie project, I'm doing all my own editing, all my own proofing, everything. So there's with a pub, they do all that. I record, I send out the raw stuff, and they do it, which I guess is in the same token to what you do. You're all your own editing. You're hiring out for that. You're getting your own cover art together. You're putting it up on Amazon, which, by the way, I hear is awful fun to do, and taking care of all that stuff. But my real question though was, what are you binge watching on Netflix right now?
I just binge watched Wednesday, and
Okay.
I absolutely adored it. I
I've
thought
heard
it
a
was
lot.
fabulous.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about it. It's the first
Yeah,
season, right?
first season. Yep.
Excellent.
There's only one season out, and I really, really enjoyed it. But it's dark, and that suits me. So,
Well,
it's
I saw
weird.
that. Yeah, I saw. Aside from being a killer from Ireland, I saw that you
Hmm.
have occasionally worked in horror. Is that correct?
I have, yeah, I've written some horror. I have, I have a short out that's with. It wasn't an anthology with Piers Anthony was in it as well, which I thought was. I was so excited. He's such. I'm such a big fan of his, and when
Yeah.
I got into a book with him, I was just like, oh my god, that was fabulous. But it was called Bits of the Dead, and everybody wrote these little flash fictions for about zombies. So they were all dark and menacing, and I had to write one about a zombie goldfish because it's who I am. you know,
How does that work exactly?
it was
Go ahead, please.
no, 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 no. It's fine. It's in this short. The guy goes to the supermarket, and all the pieces of meat are trying to get back together to form their original creatures. It was great.
So wait, you're a Pierce Anthony fan? See, I haven't heard Pierce Anthony in
Yeah.
years and years and years. That's been a long time. That goes back to like
Hmm.
I grew up on fantasy and sci-fi, so I read a lot of like
Hmm.
Forgotten Realms stuff. Of course, I did Lord of the Rings, all that good jazz, and then of course I got
Yep.
into Star Wars. And were you grounded in that? Did you read a lot of fantasy or sci-fi as a kid?
I didn't read a lot. I read more horror. I still am a huge Stephen King's fan. I've read everything the man has ever written ever. Um, uh, but I did read Piers Anthony. I liked his Xanth series was my favorite growing up,
Hmm.
with all the puns. I mean, I it was just that was just a great series.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I was a big fan.
So
But I read more horror.
yeah, with the horror stuff, who's your favorite? I know you said Stephen King. Who else do you have in that genre?
Definitely Stephen King. Let's see. Dean Koontz I'm a big fan of his. I like Clive Barker, of course. Who else? Uh, just just random, a lot of random stuff.
That's a
Um,
couple different
I don't know if
styles as well. There's a huge difference between Stephen
yeah,
King and Dean Koontz by far.
yes.
Stephen King, I
Hmm.
found, can. he he will have a 2 pages describing the inside of a chest of drawers kind of thing. I mean, it goes on a
Mhm.
long time
Yeah.
sometimes. It's very cool. It's very into it. But by the same token, it's also when I first discovered Stephen King, I didn't like him much, and I've actually tried again in my later years, and I don't have time to
Mhm.
read for pleasure these days. But when I first discovered Stephen King, I was like 12, and I wanted like either give me some dwarves and elves or give me a spaceship. That's what I was into at the time.
Right.
Dean Koontz, if I remember correctly, my wife got into Dean Koontz for a while. Now, with the horror stuff, that doesn't typically translate from what I've seen, and maybe you've written something I don't know about here, doesn't translate to the romance genre very often. I've never seen a zombie romance.
I have written zombie romances.
No shit.
I have.
Oh, I
I
love you,
have.
Kiernan Kelly.
Yes. They were published with they were published with Changeling. I think they're still available. Um, I think Drop Dead Sexy is the name of the anthology, and it's a couple of stories in there about zombie romances.
That is awesome.
Uh, yeah.
I have
Well,
people in the.
the premise I go off of with when it comes to being a zombie is that if you die and you're brought back, technically you're a zombie, right? So you can have a heart attack and be brought back and you're a zombie. So they're not like most of my the zombies in the romance are not juicy.
Mhm.
The
Yeah,
zombies in the background maybe, but the actual zombie that's in love is not falling apart.
there's I need to make a clarification here because there are people in the crowd talking. There's a far cry difference now. Zombie romance, that's proper horror in my opinion.
Hmm.
There's okay, we have like tentacle monsters and that sort of shit going on in the romance genre right now.
Right.
That's cool. I don't know if that's horror or not. It doesn't feel like horror to me. And we also have, of course, like like the classical supernatural stuff. You got like or I'm sorry, like vampires. You got werewolves, all that good shit. That, in my
Mhm.
opinion, not. I don't know. Maybe I'm. What do you think? Is that like a vampire romance? Do you think that's horror?
Yeah, I don't think it's proper horror. I
Mm-hmm.
think what especially like what I've written it's more humor than horror.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because like you said, I don't think horror translates really well into romance. I suppose it can be done. I just haven't done it myself. The the books I've written, and I have one that's not out yet. It's still in editing. It's called The Sunshine Surgeon. It's about a serial killer, but there is a romance in it. But I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't classify the book as a romance
I
because of the
absolutely
dark themes that go through
dude.
it.
This serial killer stuff. I've done a couple of those. I've absolutely loved them to death. They're a lot of fun because they give there's no Mary Sueing going on. You know that this
Right,
character is there. This is a flawed character. We know that
right.
they're it's not right what they're doing. I absolutely eat that shit up. Now that being said, it also gets into some of the darker side of the romance that I've seen. For instance, the one I'm thinking of in specific, there was like knife play and shit in there. There's
Yeah,
it's very dark. It was a
yeah.
ton of fun. Do you still enjoy writing that kind of thing? I know you said you're working on
Well,
one.
I've never, I haven't written knife play. It's one of the few things I have not written. And when I say few, I mean few. I've, um, only because blood, I think, I don't know, it just squicks me a little bit when it comes
Yeah,
to trying to tie it together with a romance.
yeah.
But that's just me. That's just my thing. I mean, it's perfectly fine for someone else, to read and write and enjoy. Um, but to me, I think that real dark stuff is kind of hard to work into a romance,
Hmm.
at least a romance by the standard definition, if that makes
Well,
any kind of sense.
it absolutely does. For one, we have a standard set of tropes that we're working in most of the time,
Hmm.
and for another, well, there's a happily ever after, which is
Hmm.
kind of hard to work in. But there's also, and maybe this is a trend that's been going on the last few years more so than normal, the trigger warning trend, where we've got and there would be so many in a horror. But you've got so many things going on. You've trigger warning. There's a psycho killer in this book. What are you going to write at the beginning of that? Now,
Yeah, I hate trigger warnings. I really do. I hate them so hard because I feel that if there's something that's that startling in a book,
hmm
it'll be in the blurb. So read the blurb. If the blurb says that there's a serial killer on the loose, there's going to be a serial killer in the book. There's going to be murder.
I am
Someone's going to die.
I'm so torn on my opinion for this because I understand the point. I understand. Let's say you have a trigger and you're looking to have you're reading this book to escape your life for a minute and you don't want to run into
Right,
that trigger. So I understand the point.
right.
But god damn it, some of the most fun books that I've ever read have really big surprises in them. Something that
Yes,
in that kind of gets taken away by the trigger. So um,
right.
I I'm so
Yeah,
torn.
that's I don't like trigger warnings. I have a book that just came out and it actually it was doing really well, and then somebody gave it a 3 star, which is not bad. I am not complaining about a 3 star. I'm just not. I think 3 star is perfectly acceptable. The reason it got a 3 star was because they didn't finish it because there was an abuse scene in it.
hmm
Now, in the blurb, I say that she's escaping an abuse situation.
hmm
So that kind of should have been giving you the idea that there's something going on in this book.
Sure.
But whoever this was bought it and did not finish it because of this situation. So I
Right.
totally get that. But to put a trigger warning on it, I don't know. There'd just be this like giant list of if you've ever been in fan fiction, and anybody who has read fan fiction knows they use trigger warnings, and there could be like this giant paragraph full of trigger. By the time you finish reading the trigger warnings, you don't want to read the book anymore because you've already read the book just by reading the trigger warnings.
Well, that's exactly where I'm at. Is it kind of spoils now? There's also a theory in the community, and I've seen this work for it and against it. Some people in the romance community want, and not everybody, but some that I've observed, want to know what the story is, what they're getting before they go in, which I suppose is the same in a lot of genres. Let's say
Right.
you're getting an action movie, right? You know, in the action movie that the action hero is going to have a few fights. Ultimately, they're going to win. That's going to be, and they're probably going to get the girl. That's the way it's going to fucking work. It's an action movie, right?
Hmm.
In the
Right.
romance genre, oftentimes they have an expectation going in. Here's the trope. I know it's going to be enemies to lovers. That's exactly what I want, and I want a happy sappy book. So they go for that specifically, and they don't want any surprises. Really, they want
Right.
that, and they're going to maybe read 10 of those in a week.
Hmm.
Whereas other people in the genre want the surprise. They want like I don't like dropping names, but like a Tal Bauer or something where you have no idea what you're fucking getting into until read the damn book.
Right.
That's the excitement for me, but then again, I'm also not the crowd here, so I guess there's room for everything and there's room for everyone.
Right.
The trigger warnings in specific. I've been in this a decade. It sounds like you've been writing a bit longer than I've been recording at this point. And these only started popping up in the last 5 years, and I only started tagging them at the beginning of
Hmm.
books in the last 3 years or so. It just wasn't a thing until very recently. So,
Yes.
yeah, thank you. And I don't mean to be controversial, everybody, although I'm John fucking Solo. If you don't want to watch, go get off my fucking channel. It says here as well that are you working under multiple names or are you just working under Kiernan Kelly or
No, I also work under Dakota Chase, and that's how I do my YA.
okay?
My YA is Dakota Chase.
Are you still working on the young adult
Yes.
stuff?
Yeah, I do. Just had a book come out called Osmosis, which is a sequel to a book I did a few years ago called Mad About the Hatter. It is the story of Alice's brother who goes to Wonderland and hooks up with the Hatter, and they fall in love. And in Mad About the Hatter, they have all these adventures in Wonderland, and then in Osmosis, they go to the land of Oz, and they're in Oz.
That is fantastic.
So
Do you have to like pay for copyright shit to use that at this point, or is that
no, that's all. It's all in public domain.
that's awesome? I did not know that.
Yeah.
That could also explain why they've done so many damn movies about it recently too. They
Hmm.
keep on redoing it over and over and over again.
Yep.
But that's fantastic. One of the crowds said that they picked that up at GRL, which is also very cool.
Hmm.
Um, now
Oh,
I
I
was
love
looking.
GRL.
Yeah, it looks like you did the 2013 GRL. Was that one of the very first ones?
Was that the first one? I was at the very first one, which was in New Orleans.
There you go. So
Yep.
you've
I
been
was.
at it a while.
Yeah.
I'm a
Yeah.
newbie to it, so you've got a lot more time in the
Oh,
GRLs than I do.
yeah.
Did you have a good time with it this year?
I did. I did. I have a good time every time I go. I've only missed a few. I know I missed Chicago. I missed the first one in Virginia. I think there was one other one that I may have missed, but I've been to all the rest. And I always have a great time. The crowd is so great. They're so understanding and accepting, and and they're always willing to read your books, and you buy books like crazy. They're just fabulous, and I love being on the panels and doing all that stuff and making people laugh. That's my favorite thing.
me, me too. I have a hard time. I really enjoy them, but I have a hard time. I'm probably ADHD, so I'm like I just the first couple days I'm just bounce 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 bounce. I'm just going and
Hmm.
going and going and going, and typically by about 3 days in I just crash. I'm just
Uh huh.
so by Friday I'm calmed down. If you want to see me in my best mode, see me Friday. I'm probably good by then. Um, but until then, I just cannot slow down. It's amazing. There's so many people to see. Did you get the con crud coming out of it this year?
I did not. I was very lucky. I escaped the con crud. I did not get COVID. I did not get con crud. I was very, very lucky. I don't know how I didn't get it, but I did because everybody I know that got it.
Hmm. I had something afterwards. I don't know what it was, but I had something. I don't really have to do the COVID test around here these days because I don't have an employer, so I don't have to. But it probably was. I don't know.
Yeah.
It had me down. It's just a cold, but a cold to a voice actor is like poison. That's like
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
here, you can't work for 2 weeks. Go. But it was
Right.
still, I wouldn't trade it for the world. I got to hug 600 of my favorite people, so it was freaking awesome. And
That's right.
if I have to get sick to do that, fine, so be it. I'll do it. Um, what do you got? You said you're working on the, I guess, a horror book currently. What else you got that you're working on? Somebody like you, I know, probably has 3 or 4 projects rolling.
Yeah, well, I just had one release, and I'm working on the 15th book in the Midnight Rodeo series that I write with B.A. Tortuga and Julia Talbot.
Mhm.
And this one is, if anybody's read the Midnight Rodeo series, it is a paranormal rodeo that's run by supernaturals for supernaturals. And in this one that I'm running, the one I just released a couple of months ago was heavy petting, and that was a hippo shifter. And then in this one that I'm writing right now, it's a chimera and a an apple-headed Chihuahua shifter.
Wait, an apple-headed chihuahua? You got to tell me about that.
Yeah, they're called applehead chihuahuas because they've got little tiny round heads. He's a bull rider. He's little.
He sounds like maybe a jockey. I'm not sure about a bull rider, but a jockey, perhaps. Have you ever had a Chihuahua? Have you ever had a pet that's a Chihuahua before?
My daughter has a Chihuahua.
So you are familiar with the breed.
I am
We
totally
yeah,
familiar.
my mother had one and my grandfather had one, and the one that my mother has is actually like the chillest Chihuahua I've ever met. But typically they shake. It's just a constant.
Hmm.
They're just vibrating.
Yes.
Did you work that into the shifter character? Is he just
Oh yeah, he's got ADHD for sure.
me and him would get along just fine? Um, I was checking out. It looks like you briefly back with your I guess it was your first pub. You dabbled in the world of audio. Do you listen to audiobooks at all? Is that your thing or no?
I do like audio. I listen to audio when I'm driving, especially.
Okay.
Um, and I've had a couple of my books put into audio. Mad About the Hatter was done by Joel Leslie,
Hmm.
and
He'd be a
I'm
great
looking to
pick for
have.
that, by the way.
Yeah, he did a great job, and I'm looking to have osmosis put into audio as well,
Hmm.
so that I have both of them in audio.
It looks like it's been a while. I was looking. I saw you'd worked with Joel,
Yeah.
and yeah, Mad About the Hatter would
Yep.
he would be. That's like you perfect actor pick there.
Hmm.
It looks like there was one I didn't recognize in there, Stone Cannon. I'm not sure if that was just a
He, I
go.
think he did Riding Heartbreak Road, if I'm
Mm.
not
Yes,
mistaken.
right,
I
Riding Heartbreak
think.
Road.
Yeah, that was not my pick. I mean, he did a fine job, but it was
Hmm.
that was through Drew Spinner.
Yeah, it looks like well, and
Hmm.
that was a weird thing with DSP. I mean, I'm having Andrew on tomorrow. I love Andrew to death, and I've had some
Hmm.
great
Yeah,
made some great friends and great relationships there. But that being said, one of the things I didn't like about it at the time, it did me well as a business, but they really didn't give the author a lot of selection in the process. It would
no,
sometimes it was a pick of like you can have one of these people, but sometimes it was just here you go, your book's done. You know.
yeah, that's pretty much what happened. Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't as fond of that, but it was the system at the time, I guess, and it's the way it worked. But
Yeah,
you've been in this industry for quite a while, and your bio
yeah. I
says
was
you've.
first published,
Go
I
ahead.
think, 2005.
Okay,
I think.
so that is it says over 100 titles at this point. Is that accurate?
Yeah, yeah, that's accurate. Over the years, counting all the books I published over the years, it's over
How
100 titles.
I mean, it sounds like you've done a bit of everything in the genre. It sounds like you do shifters. I'm sure you've done contempt, all that fun stuff.
Hmm.
BDSM. I'm sure you probably dabbled in that here and there.
Yep, I
Um,
have
is
done that. Yes.
is there a comfort zone at this point? The one that like you're not going to get bored with. You're going to keep on writing. Is there one region that you really like to focus on here?
I love paranormal. I absolutely adore it because I get to make up my own rules.
Hmm.
Um, and I love shifters in particular because they're other, they're different. They have their own set of rules, and I love that being able to change shape type of thing and get out of yourself and become something new.
Hmm.
So yeah, so I'm really into that, and I like the fantasy YA a lot. So I'm going to continue with the Mad About the Hatter series for sure.
That has to be so much fun. Just
It
absolute a
is.
ball to write. I'm sure.
It totally is.
The paranormal. You're not the first person that I've heard that, especially um, actually, little Patty Logan comes to mind. We're talking to
Hmm.
her where she just recently did a paranormal series, and she was like, "It's so nice. If you get backed into a corner, you can just say, well, it's magic.' Like
That's it.
solves every.
Magic.
Yeah, it's
Yep.
amazing. But it opens up a lot of doors also because there's I would imagine it's happened with you where you've written so many stories, you kind of fall into a formula. You fall into a pat routine of, I know the conflict is at 80%, sex before 60, like all these things that you probably just fall into. And paranormal sounds like it maybe helps you keep that alive, freshen it up a bit, you know?
Hmm. Well, yeah,
Um,
you have to hit your points, as you're writing the story because that's just the way it is.
mm-hmm.
But the thing I like most about paranormal, I write weird shifters. I don't necessarily write wolves and bears and cats.
Look,
I write things,
a chihuahua could be
like
a wolf. All right, that's I mean
I've
it's a wolf.
I've written fainting goats. I've written I've written a dragon shifter that was caught between changes and he thought he was a snake. I've written uh, a hippo shifter. I've written. I write weird shifters. That's my thing.
Somebody in the crowd, Kale Hires said T Rex. Yeah, I've seen a lot
Oh
of.
yes, yes. They were probably at the panel
That's so much
at
fun, and
GRL.
yeah, and I believe Kale Hires was. In fact, um, there's it's awesome though that it's still at this point over 100 books, and you're still finding a love for it, and you've still found. I mean, I I. I need to keep one of the advantages of being an audiobook narrator is most of the time I can keep moving, so I don't get locked into the same type of story over and over and over again. It does happen, scheduling being what it is, but for the most part, I can bump from one to the next to the next to the next.
Hmm.
Mine typically last in between 5 to 7 days, whereas you're going to need to live in your book for what's a typical 50, 60,000 word book take you? Is that a month or 2 months?
Um, no, I could probably bang out a 50,000 word book in probably maybe 4 weeks, about a
Yeah,
month,
yeah.
if I put my mind to it. Yeah, about a month.
That's cruising, by
But
the way. That's cruising.
well, I self edit as I go.
Hmm.
So I usually end up just doing the one draft
Hmm.
because by the time I'm finished, I've been through it so many times that it's edited by the time I'm done writing it. So usually it's about a month. I tend to write shorter. Short is my sweet spot.
Yeah,
Um, so I write a lot of novellas and a lot of short stories. But so my novels are fewer than my shorts
yeah, that
because
makes
writing
sense.
long for me is just harder. I write very concise, I guess,
Well, yeah, and what are you
concisely.
considering? What are you considering a novella? Is that a 30,000 or is that a 60,000?
Between 25 and 30,000
Okay,
is a
yeah,
novella to me. A
yeah.
novel is 50,000 and up.
I watched the late great Susie Hawk make a career out of that in the beginning. She
Hmm.
wrote 30,000 word novellas for probably the better part of 2 years and killed, just absolutely slayed. She was doing so good. Um, Now she was knocking out 30,000 words in like a week too, which
Hmm.
unfortunately probably didn't help her health any, but she was
Right.
just boom, boom, boom. But the advantage of that style of writing as well is I would imagine you build up a huge fan base because people can expect 30,000 words, and consistently
Right.
in a universe, which makes sense. You have been an absolute wonderful guest and a joy to have on, by the way. Thank you
Well,
for coming
thank
on.
you.
No, 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 you've been
Thank you.
great.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem.
I had a ball.
Yeah, and as we tell every guest that comes on, really, it's painless. It's just a conversation with someone you really don't know very well in front of a bunch of people that get to watch. So it's kind of like voyeurism
That's
at its
right.
finest. I
Which I've
appreciate it.
written.
I know that I've missed some comments. I bet you have. I know I've missed some comments in the crowd. If you get a chance at some point, if you could pop into the group and look at the comments and answer any
Oh,
questions I
sure.
missed, that'd be awesome. This is the easy part. And by the way, everybody, I'll see you tomorrow night with Andrew Gray on at about 5 o'clock. This is the easy part. All you got to do is wave bye to the camera. See y'all later. Have fun.
Bye, everybody.